All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. First and foremost, tonight is one of our favorite events that we put on as a football program throughout the entire year. It's our Hope Kids Halloween. I think it's our players' favorite event. It definitely is our coaches' favorite event. A lot of our coaches and their families will be there as well. Our players dress up, and we host the Hope Kids, who are children who have some medical needs and need some help, mentally, physically, and emotionally. And it's one of the greatest events to watch our players really lead and have fun and just be kids and really have a great Halloween party. So our development team does a really good job putting this thing on, and it's a really special event. So I know our players are really looking forward to that today. So if you get a chance to visit with them, you can ask them a little bit about that, because it really is a special evening as we get into the week of Halloween on Thursday. So I'm sure you got a lot of questions just about last week and the game. Obviously, really excited about getting the victory. Goal was to be 1-0, and the goal was to do it better. And I thought we accomplished that. Played a lot of complimentary football, offense, defense, special teams, and we're able to learn a lot from it and move on. So learn the lesson, right? Leave the event, move on, and that's what we did. And live in the truth. Yesterday was about living in the truth. It wasn't about looking at the score. It wasn't about anything like that. It was about evaluating how we won and how we can even do that better, offensively, defensively, and special teams. So with that, we'll open up for questions.
EJ, about a year ago, you spoke candidly about NIL and the need for it. Where do you feel things stand now as far as being able to retain, your best players, standout players?
Yeah, it's always a work in progress. It always will be. Always has been. We've had some very generous donors step up big time for us and continue to do and work with Dinkytown athletes and the collective. I mean, it's really special to see what these people are doing for our student athletes. I think everybody sees the importance of it, and I think everybody, people can report what they think is actually there, but when you start to see what people are doing and how they're doing it, and where people are because of it, and the investment into their student athletes and investment into their football programs, that goes a long, long way in building football programs in 2024 and beyond. So I'm really excited about where we are and the progress we continue to make every single day. Dave, you know this, as we talked before. I mean, the job of the head football coach is even more important now in fundraising, not just for facilities and stuff, but for your student athletes, and getting out there and making sure people are really, really aware of what's going on in college football and how people can keep things together and then go get the needs that you need to be able to get. So I think people are really becoming more aware of it, especially our fans, our donors, our boosters, our support staff, our supporters, and I can't thank them enough. And we got to continue to keep doing more. I got to continue to keep working harder and making sure everybody understands that. But I think we have a really good understanding of where we are, and our administration and the people that are involved in our NIL and Dinkytown, I know, are working really, really hard as well.
PJ, what do you look to as some of the big offseason benchmarks when it came to evolution of how the offense runs now today?
Yeah, good question, Andy. I think it was just, we wanted to be able to move the football without just being able to run the football. I know that sounds really simple and complex, but it's are very simple and non-complex. But to be able to do that, you have to have a lot of trust in your players. You have to have a lot of consistency, and they have to be able to process at a really high level. I talked to you afterwards about how many plays were actually called. I don't know if we've ever had as many plays called, different plays, different concepts since we've been here. But it was simple us, because that's what the players have been working on since January. You watch the evolution of where Max was from North Carolina to now. You watch the evolution of him as a leader from January till now. I mean, it is night and day. And that's all compliment, because it was never bad. It's just different. The processing of information, the ownership of the system, the consistency in the performance from everybody. And I think when everybody knows they're going to get a piece of the pie somehow, some way, the pie tastes better, right? And you're more willing to have more of the pie. And I think that's what this team has done selflessly from January on, but it's way more real now, because you're in the thick of things. You're in the season, and it's testing that. But the throwing to run it was something we wanted to do back in January, because that was something that we attempted last year. You can see a lot of critical situations in games that we didn't finish. We do throw the ball. and we can end the game. We just don't execute it. And this year we knew we were going to have to be able to close that gap to find a way to do that. And, you look at the North Carolina game, it was the last-second field goal. That game could have went either way. The Michigan game could have went either way. There's also the USC game could have went either way. UCLA game could have went either way. So the people that say, well, we could be this. Well, we also could be something else in a different way. I don't live in the coulda, woulda, shouldas. You live in what's real, and you live in what's truth. I mean, we are who we are. We're 1-0 in the Maryland season. We've already turned the page to Illinois, who's a really good ranked football team, and we're going to have to play better than we did last week, and our players know that. So if it takes running or throwing it to run it, if it takes running it to run it, throwing it to throw it, whatever it takes, we've got to find a way to be able to execute. But the execution is what's helping us be able to stay ahead of the chains and make it a very balanced offense.
Piggybacking off that, Max mentioned post-game about how much he's designing and Coach Harbaugh is designing and working on new concepts for the offense, and sometimes he doesn't even understand them until he fleshes them out a few days later in the week. Just how have you seen him develop as a player?
Yeah, I think he's being very, very humble when he says he doesn't even understand that. There's not much that he doesn't understand. But I think that when your quarterbacks, I can say quarterbacks because everybody's working just as hard as Max, which is great, and your coordinator and quarterback coach, when they see things very similarly, right? And I don't like to say on the same page because the page is pretty big depending on what book you're on, and there's a lot of words on a page, and they're all not aligned, right? I'm talking about alignment, right? True alignment. Our coordinator, quarterback room are all aligned in what we can and cannot do, and what is too much and what's just right. And how can we keep defenses off balance? And how can we be able to use as many weapons as we can to diversify the ball into playmakers' hands? And I think, again, everybody's striving to do the same things. I mean, we all are. I mean, I told you I watch many press conferences on Monday. Today's my press conference day to watch a lot of different teams. We're all talking the same thing, but it's the consistency. That's the truest measure of performance. If you can keep doing it at a high level over and over and over and keep doing it better, you're going to win a lot of games. If you don't, all press conferences that don't pretty much sound the same. So, but I love it. It's so fun to just listen. It's not a coach and a student or a coach and a player. It is a conversation. It feels so much like an NFL style quarterback room. And I give them a lot of credit because that takes a lot of trust, and that takes a relationship that can really mesh. So Coach Harbaugh and Max and all the quarterbacks are doing a really good job.
Illinois' defense has been a difficult code to crack the last few years. How would you say you're better
For everybody.
equipped? Yeah, right.
I think they have one of the most unique schemes defensively in college football, and it's really hard to really peel back the onion and dissect it and get tendencies. Okay, they're doing this, so they're going to be in this coverage. They can run their man coverage schemes. They can play cover 3. They can play cover 2. Those are very different concepts, right? Those call for all different types of plays, and they can run them from all the same looks, and they all look identical until after the ball snapped. And it's not just that guy's going to that area, and that's it. They can all get to the coverage. This guy could be playing the deep half this time, and this guy could be playing the deep half the next time. They have their own system. It works really well. It forces you to be really decisive, make really good decisions, and they do everything they can to force you to make mistakes. And they're very advantageous. They take advantage of those mistakes. They're really good tacklers. They play really hard. They swarm to the football. They're smart. They understand the system, and they play it at a high level, and they play for each other. I mean, it's a typical Brett Bielema team. They play really hard for each other, and they're a very good defensive football team. They can run the football on offense. They can throw it as well. But, they play smash-mouth football on both sides and very disciplined football, especially in situations. So they understand their scheme, and they play really well.
What challenges does Luke Altmaier present to you guys?
He's a great athlete. We've watched him for the last few years, right, or last year and then this year. And, he's a really good athlete where he can create on the run. He's really, really cool, calm under pressure in the pocket. He stays in the pocket, delivers really good throws. He's very accurate as he's being hit and as he's delivering the ball, as he's getting hit. But he's a really good runner too. And, he's got a lot of confidence in the people in front of him up front. And I think that shows. He's in complete control of the offense. And they do a really good job. He's got a high completion percentage, which means that, he's processed it at a high level and going through his progressions and getting the ball to where the ball needs to be and get to the open guy.
PJ, how much does it help your offense when you've had those pressure situations like at the end of the second quarter, you limited time, you get down the field, you get the field goal, UCLA game, right at the end, you get down and get the touchdown. What does that do for your players?
Well, you always want to be on the attack. You got to be on the attack, but you also want to be smart. There's times that it's okay to go in and take a knee, and there's times to go attack. That was a perfect time for us to go attack, especially when the ball goes out of bounds with 20-some seconds left. We have a timeout, and all you need is 20-some yards. The wind was at our back. So, Dragan, I trusted him from a long distance. And, you want to see how that first play goes. First place gets a chunk. We're moving. And we did. We got moving. And now we're on the 40-some yard line, and we bang a timeout. We don't have any timeouts left, but now we banged a timeout. And now we get a first down. Now we can clock it. And now all of a sudden you can get 4 or 5 more plays in that 24, 25 seconds if you're smart. The one with 7 seconds left, we knew we were getting the ball in the second half. They had just scored. We wanted to make sure that we countered that score to make that 7, technically 4, with the field goal. The worst thing you can do is run a play that takes 7 seconds to run outside of your control. Ball gets tipped, something happens, and the clock runs out, and you get no points, and you're in field goal range. So for us, take the 3, come back out with the ball in the second half. We score a touchdown. Technically, that's a 3-point swing back to us in those last 3 possessions. Their score, our field goal, and then our touchdown to open the half. That's a 10-7 swing. So that's what we were thinking on the end of the half. But again, with Max, I feel good about anything we do when we go attack because I think he can process at a high level. That processing at a high level is, I think, the greatest trait a quarterback can have. And then if you match that to accuracy, that's the next, right? And we're talking leadership and everything, but that's what we're talking about. And it's not about how far you can throw it. He can throw it plenty far, but it's the processing the information, right? And then distributing it to open guy accurately. And he's been able to do that. He made some huge throws in that game. And you probably all remember them. So,
What are the biggest changes you've seen in Elijah Spencer this year versus last year?
Yeah, I think it's always hard. I just think it's hard to be a one-year transfer. I always think that's hard. And Max is in a really, really hard position. I would love to have Max for another year. You can all see that. Like, boy, another year with that guy, holy cow. But I think Elijah, if we had him for 1 year, I think Elijah needed more development and more time. And I think you're seeing what Elijah has always had in him. And that's why he came here, to develop. Everybody develops at their own rate. He had to develop and make and fail and grow a lot last year and had to do it really in maybe before he was even ready to play at that level. This year, you see the confidence, you see the growth, you see the maturity, you see an understanding for what we're doing and what his role is. It's the whole game. It's the releases part of the wide receiver. It's the break points part of the wide receiver. It's the separation tools of the receiver. The way he can catch the ball in different positions. It's the conceptual part of being a receiver. It's the blocking part of being a receiver. He understands a lot of that now. I'm not saying he didn't understand it last year, but he didn't master it yet. And I think it takes a few years to get that, especially within our system. And I think he has done that beautifully. He is a young man who's incredibly confident, but also very aware. He's a very in-tune individual with his body, with his mind. We have some great conversations and things that I would never think about that test me and on a completely different level because he's a high thinker. He's an outside the box thinker. And I'm just glad we have him. And I think he's matured, like I said, beautifully. And you can see what type of player he's going to be. And NFL scouts are asking about him, and it's fun to talk to him about him because last year I think he was far away from where he is right now. But he never quit on himself. He was consistent every day. He's one of the hardest workers on our team. And when your hardest workers become your best players and your best players are your hardest workers, you got something really positive. And Elijah's one of the examples of that.
PJ, what would it mean to you to not only get your first win over Coach Bielema, but also lock up bowl eligibility?
This is going to bore you. I mean, 1-0. That's all we're worried about, 1-0. It is. I have a lot of respect for Coach Bielema and what he does. He always has a hard, smash mouth, tough football team, no matter where he was, Wisconsin, Arkansas, Illinois. It's his DNA. We got to play our best football. We're playing a ranked opponent on the road. You know, we got a DIB, man. Do it better. So
We talked a lot about the offensive line and some of the struggles. What do you feel like was clicking for them on Saturday?
I don't know how the struggles is kind of a tough word because I wouldn't call it struggles. Like I wouldn't call it that. I'd call it there's a lot of things we can continue to get better at, but we're doing a lot of things well. And I think just because people see, okay, well, you're not having as many yards as maybe you used to on the ground, but all-purpose yards for certain people are close to what their all-purpose yards were last year, just without running and they're being part of a receiver, right? So we're doing other things that don't just allow us to sit there and say, okay, we had 350 yards rushing because we ran it on 50 attempts. We're doing things a little bit differently. But I do think as we go forward, one, they're getting better. Two, you know, we've had some more moving parts than we've had in the past. But I think guys are getting opportunities and taking advantage of their opportunities. They are in here all the time. They're a really close-knit group. And I like what they're doing. Now we got to continue to do it better. We didn't have any sacks last week. So I don't think anything's disappointing about that. I don't think there's any struggle piece in that game about that. Now I do think there's areas of improvement. Can we come off the ball a little bit better? Can we strike a little bit better? Is our first step where it needs to be? Is our pad level where it's supposed to be? Those are all the attention to detail things that we dissect yesterday and then we go fix hopefully tomorrow. But we've had that in every single position all year round. It's not one position or one coach that's immune to that.
Take one or two more for Coach.
Saw the bring the boom celebration from you after the game and Coy did after the reception. Just how has that made the rounds around the team?
I have no idea I had no idea what it was. I had no idea what bring the boom is. We actually had to look it up in a staff meeting. Chili, Matt Childers, our video guy, he's been with me, 11 years. And Chili is in our staff meeting. And when I'm talking about certain things, and sometimes I can go off on a little tangent. Chili's already got my tangent pulled up on YouTube to explain it to people what I'm talking about. Because some people have no idea what I'm even bringing up at some point in a staff meeting. But he knows because he's been with me so long, and bang, there's the example of it. So we started talking about players. We have an interception or a turnover song in practice. And it changed. And I'm like, wait a second. Like, if we're going to change, I have to know what we're doing because I'm so accustomed when I hear it, I know the defense got a takeaway. And sometimes I'm on the offensive side and don't see it, but I got to know so that I can run over there and celebrate with them or at least praise the model. Well, they changed it to this boom thing. And so then Chili pulls up the boom family, and then I got it. I understood it. I just didn't get it. And tied to Costco, tied to all the I got it. And then, so it's not a hard dance, and that's why I did it. And I think they got a kick out of it. So that's about that. You do that for your players because you look at them and you're laughing at them all week, and they're doing it. And this is like serious stuff with them, like serious stuff. This boom thing and the dance and what they were going to do and getting takeaways, and they took that very seriously. And I didn't do that all week with them until I did it. And anyway, that's part of the 1-0 celebration, I guess.
Final question for Coach, or is everyone else set? Go ahead, Dave. We'll finish with you.
PJ, you look at Max and how good he is and how he's grown here, FCS player. Indiana's got a ton of players that came from the FCS level. Do you feel like recruiting in the Power 4, looking at FCS players is really going to intensify even more going forward?
I don't know if it's the only focus that we have, but it's something that we emphasize. I think bringing players up from the FCS who are really, really talented. They have to be able to fit us, right? And I think that gratefulness is the number one thing that connects a locker room. And you bring somebody from an FCS facility standpoint, resource standpoint, stadium standpoint, support standpoint, logo, brand standpoint, NIL standpoint, and you bring them up to this level, for the most part, pretty grateful. They're looking at their meals and saying, wait, I get a meal? We're talking a meal, let alone NIL and money and all the other stuff that they have. But it's the resources academically. Wait, I have a tutor for what class? Every class? I have a learning specialist for which class? Oh, every class? Right? Socially, right? There's a lot of people here, right? There's a city here. there's all these things, this incredible engine, this university in the Big Ten. So I think that the gratefulness is there. Jack Henderson, I can say the same thing about him. I can say the thing about Ethan Robinson. I could say the same thing about other people who've come through here. And I'm not saying that's the only place you can have success, but for us, it fits us. If my philosophy is you connect the locker room on gratefulness, then gratefulness is a characteristic you're looking for to bring into your locker room. I'm not saying I'm perfect, and I do it all the time, and I hit on everybody that way. But we're looking at that holistically from a helicopter view of who we can do that with. And for the most part, people that are coming from the FCF don't have the resources they have that we have. So immediately they're pretty grateful to start with. And I think that, I think on the other side of that though, Dave, I think it's harder too. I think it's harder because it is such a jump. I mean, you're skipping group of 5, right? And then you're going from power 4, if you want to call it, to the other 2, the super 2, the power 2, whatever people are calling it, the Big Ten and the SEC. So you're skipping a bunch of steps. So I think it can be even harder too. That's why I said, even with a guy like Elijah coming from the group of 5, sometimes it takes him multiple years. And I think Max is a little bit different than most. But to answer your question, Dave, yes, it is something we completely focus on because of the resources we have here. And I'm not going to say it's because of what we can afford, but it fits our resources. It fits our ability to have grateful players come in this university and in our program and in our locker room, academically, athletically, socially, spiritually. And they're really good players. They're really good players and really good people. And I think it's something we'll continue to focus on. We definitely will as we go forward. Won't be the only focus, but it's somewhere that we definitely start. Appreciate everybody. Happy Halloween. Row the boat. Sky Mile. Go Gophers. Thanks.